I'm Marta Teneva, Head of Content at BI, and I'll be your host. To make the most of this webinar, here are a few quick tips. Please use the Q&A section for your questions, and our speakers will answer as many as they can in the final 15 minutes of the event. The event is being recorded, and you'll be able to rewatch it, download resources, and access more insights on BI's website. We'll share the link after it ends. An important note, after the event is over, you'll be automatically transferred to an AI Readiness Assessment survey. Please take just 5 minutes to fill it in, and afterwards you will receive a personalized follow-up report with your assessment results. Now, on to today's topic, which is AI. As you know, AI is one of the hottest topics in the business world right now, and it makes headlines and also raises tons of questions. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. I'm happy to introduce our expert speakers, Dr. Patrick Wolf, a leading figure in AI and emerging technologies, and Dimitar Dekov, CEO of BI. Patrick, Dimitar, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marta, and welcome to everybody. Let's start. Let's kick it off.
Hi, everyone. Just I'm coming off mute there. We have a wonderful little presentation here that we want to go into, but let's start off with the key takeaways. What exactly are we going to be getting out of this, right? And there's 4 different areas we kind of want to talk about, and these are quite bold and grandiose, I think, for the time commitment here that we have, but hopefully you can walk away with some inklings in each one of these, right? Talking about those key components to successful AI data strategy, right? And when you have this AI data strategy, right, there's a lot of technical components to it. How does it align to the business, right? How does that put to the business objectives? Also looking at how we can navigate this implementation, right? What challenges typically occur and how do you overcome them? And then, of course, this ending AI readiness assessment, which will kind of help gauge where you're at and where you could be moving forward. One quote I like to share here and talk about is, there's a huge economic impact to AI. And there's always these different large firms, McKinsey, you name them, they always come out and say, look, this is going to be a big impact. But this one is one that I think is actually truthful, right? When they talk about the impact that's going to be occurring in generating revenue, and AI is already doing this dominantly, right? $30 trillion. This is a massive amount of money. And I would probably even argue to say it's going to be a lot more. And what we see here is that these builders, the builders of AI, the builders of this technology, utilizing your data and being the best technologically as a company is what's going to be dominating this world coming into the future. The competitive edge is getting sharper and sharper. You don't have years, you maybe have months now. And this is the type of stuff where this competitive advantage of time slowly starts being eroded away, and it comes down to what can you do best internally as a company to fight and compete in this space.
So let's start with a little bit of history of AI. The term AI has been around for a while, but for many people, this means since last year. The first GPT model was actually officially unveiled in 2018. I personally started using ChatGPT in 2021, so it was a little bit late to the show. I created an article by adding a few bullet points to the prompt, and then I sent this article to many friends and colleagues. And they said, they genuinely said they loved it. They said it was amazing and that I have a real talent for writing. Now, when we speak about AI, we often think about ChatGPT and similar models. And although they're smart, they're not the first AI systems. Actually, the term artificial intelligence was coined during the conference in 1956. The famous Alan Turing talked about the possibility of thinking machines in 1950. And in 1956, the first AI program, Logic Theorist, was created. It proved 38 famous mathematical theorems and even found new shorter proofs for some of them. Then fast forward to 1986, the first autonomous car, Navlab 1, was built. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov, the then world champion of chess. Then in late 2000s, the machine learning area saw significant progress with deep learning, leading to advancements in image classification, speech recognition, and natural language processing. generative adversarial networks, or GANs, emerged then, enabling the generation of new data samples as images, sounds from learned distributions. A major breakthrough came with the invention of the transformer model, which made the current tools like ChatGPT possible. This innovation, combined with the availability of much more powerful computers, has actually driven the impressive capabilities we see today. When we refer to AI, we barely distinguish it from machine learning. ML algorithms have actually been around for decades, with practical applications in predicting sales or inventory or customer churn and many more. The previous generation of smart algorithms primarily handled classification tasks, such as categorizing images or predicting lifetime value of a customer or determining intent. The current generation of AIs, called generative AIs, create artifacts such as video or audio or language or images or code or synthetic data. And with the hype around Gen AI, in our client practice, we're seeing something very similar to the early days of machine learning. Many companies want to use it. However, a common issue is not knowing where to start. We've heard from clients for years, hey, can you help us apply machine learning? But we don't know where to start. They often start with the tool rather than the use case. And the most optimal approach here, I think, is to start with the business needs. List your business needs, priorities, and the strategic initiatives. Then see which can benefit from AI. Don't just look at how others are using AI and try to replicate it. I'm sure Patrick will tell us more about it in his part of the presentation. Now, let's move on to the next slide. Now that we discussed the AI history, let me say what AI is not. And there are some common misconceptions. So first, self-sufficient. AI isn't autonomous. Continuous human oversight is needed to ensure accuracy and relevance. This involves taking constant care of the proper input and monitoring the output of the AI system to ensure accuracy and relevance in specific contexts. Prompt engineering is key. This is crafting queries to guide AI. And a robust data strategy is crucial here, ensuring precise and secure data that can be fed to your AI system. Substitute for human decision-making. AIs can't replicate human intuition, empathy, or ethics. Humans naturally integrate diverse data sources in their contextual nuances in their decision-making process. And AIs currently can't do that. We haven't found a way to encode fully this data into the AI systems of today. AI tools are great for routine decision-making tasks like inventory management and predicting stock levels based on data trends. Again, I will say that a solid data strategy enhances AI's role and makes it possible to think about using AI in decision support. The long-term goal is to create a symbiotic relationship where AI supports human decision makers by providing enhanced data analysis capabilities, where humans provide the contextual understanding and ethical oversight. Equally strong across all domains. AI excels where it's trained, but it doesn't generalize well. Collecting high-quality relevant data and continually training AI models makes them more accurate and more useful. Then sentient, that's an interesting one. AI, as of now, isn't sentient yet. It simulates understanding based on predefined, pre-learned patterns, but it doesn't feel or experience. Recognizing this keeps our current expectations and the strategies grounded. Reliable and trustworthy AI, its accuracy varies. It might be 90% correct in some scenarios and only 50% in another scenario, especially in unique contexts. Now, let's move on to a short quiz or a short poll.
Perfect. We'll give people a couple of minutes just to
Yeah.
click this. But it's good to think about when people are doing this and thinking about this question. One thing I like to think about when we look at history, and like a lot of people, I know Dimitar and I, we both love history. And you look back to one of the main components, this key mathematician, John von Neumann, who helped generate and create a lot of the mathematical theories and components for even like creating the atomic weapons and things like that. He helped create a lot of these theories that today are used, right? And it's kind of crazy to think back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, he's generating these ideas. And it's leading now to the point where we are finally catching up technology-wise with the GPUs and different technological components to be able to handle this computational math that's required to do this different machine learning and AI algorithms, right? So good question, good time to look at this for the question to consider where you're at with this strategy. But just fun little historical notes there. Looks like we've had a collection of surveys, and we can move on to this next section, right? Kind of diving into this key components of a successful AI data strategy. I come from a background with continuous improvement, the Lean Six Sigma, and this is why I have this in this cohesive circle here, right? And it starts with this data governance. A lot of everything we talk about when it comes to AI, ML, anything on the component comes down to the key aspect of data. And we always hear this, data is gold, bad data in, you get bad out, things like that, right? These different expletive statements that can help describe what data is required for. But it's constantly looking at that key strategy is what do you have and what are you learning against? And we go from there to say, okay, strategic alignment, the data collection accessibility, how are we accessing it, the talent and skills, technology and tools, business value, and you can kind of interchange these, right, back and forth. But I have this in this continuation because it's an area of constant improvement, right? It's this principle of constantly looking at how you can do better and evaluate what you're doing today because things change all the time. New models are released in terms of these Gen AI models, and you kind of say, where are we at? What can we do? How can we improve upon it? So it's just a key component to keep in mind is it's not static. It's not something that you simply do once and you're done and you walk away from and then come back 20 years later and reevaluate. It's something that's constantly needing to be looked at, updated, and thought about within the company, the business, the economy. Where are we going? What are we doing? And what technology is available? With this comes a key aspect of this entire thing, right? When we look at this and say, what can we digress this entire presentation down to? Here are the top 7 steps, right? And when you look at this, I would say when we're talking about creating this alignment of AI business goals and the business objectives, these are the key areas. We're going to go through each one of these, but here's the questions that you should be asking yourself or comments you should have, right? So when we look at even, for example, the first one, define clear business objectives. You have to say, what is the purpose of our business, right? And I've had so many conversations with different technology leaders, and I sometimes have to stop them and say, okay, what does your company do? Okay, you understand the high level. Now, can you tell me how it's done? Right? Can you tell me why this is occurring, how this happens? Whether you're building something, you're creating something, you're offering a product or service, it requires this entire ecosystem of looking at the business. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and just have the conversation of like, do we know what we're actually doing? We're manufacturing something, right? We're building parts and components. How does that work? What does the factory look like? How does this work in terms of the business ecosystem? All these other steps we'll be diving into, right? Like identifying the AI opportunities. This is a big one. Where do we start? You don't want to boil the ocean, but you definitely want to consider everything that's in the ocean ecosystem and figure out what's the best fish to catch, right? What is the low-hanging fruit? What are the quick wins? Of course, coming from the business value background as well as that quantifying value. And I always think this is one of the most important aspects, mainly because it's expensive. It's a time commitment. And we have to say, how can we help impact the business? At the end of the day, when you come from a technical background in IT and you go to someone in finance, everything's looked at as a cost center. Everything is a line item on a business sheet saying, what's the cost to this? What do we need? Why do we need this? And how do we justify that? And that's a big component of this is why do we want to do this as a business? Does it make sense? Is this going to help us make money? Is it going to help reduce costs, improve asset efficiency, top line and bottom line impacts? 4 is developing the strategic AI roadmap. This is a good aspect to have, right? When we talk about an AI roadmap, it's basically project management. It's that very long and detailed approach saying, what are we doing today? Where are we going to be? How are we going to get there? It can't just be pie in the sky of we're just going to start integrating LLM models into a certain application. It has to be detailed out. Why are we doing this, right? We have to ask ourselves, where are we doing this? When are we going to do this? And this ties in hand with that quantification of the value. Next one is integrate this AI and data strategies. You will probably already have a data strategy, or your company has some semblance of a data strategy. These things go hand in hand, right? And we say AI strategy, oftentimes I say AI strategy and data strategy, they're interchangeable. You can have both of these together and say, what are we doing today in our data strategy? How can we augment this with our data strategy? Because a lot of these principles, right, you can just replace AI with data, and a lot of these principles and implementation hold the same. They hold true. The last is building this AI data literacy and culture. This is really kind of asking, we have all these users, and they're not machine learning scientists, right? They're not data engineers. They're not going to understand the complexities of all this math. They hated math in school. They don't even want to talk about statistics. They don't want to know it. They just want to use it. How do you implement that to the general user community? How do you implement this business where you have the most effective use case? There's always that joke, right? Especially in the analytics world. We built all these wonderful analytics dashboards and nobody used them, right? We have 1,000 of them and nobody uses them. You have to do the same thing with AI. If you create something that's very expensive, time consuming, and requires a huge commitment to do, and you implement it in the community and it's never used, the value is dead, your roadmap is dead, and this constant improvement in any future projects is going to be looked at with the negative side eye from the business. Because you did this project and what was the outcome? You have to measure those things, right? And how do you get the people to use it? How do you understand it? It's very, very easy to do. There's so many great resources, and it's creating that culture. The last one, going back to this continuous improvement idea, monitor, evaluate, and iterate. Constant improvement and innovation. Do not stop. Diving into this first point here, right? We're going to boil down these a little bit more than the high level I was giving you, is define this clear business objective. Now, this is critical. If you're looking at a publicly traded company, you can go to any type of 10K and they say right there, this is what our objectives are this quarter. This is what our objectives are for the 6 months. This is what we're looking at for a roadmap for 12, 24-month period. What exactly is the purpose of our business? What are we doing and what do we want to do? There's always some different tagline that companies do, like, we're changing the world. That's great. You're changing the world. But no, you're trying to make money. You're trying to generate revenue. You're trying to do something, right? You have to be as clear and solid defined as this, right? And I have this wonderful acronym here that you can kind of take and steal, right? SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. If you have each one of these sections and you kind of break down your business objective within this be smart perspective, it'll help you defend any idea that you have in the alignment with that business objective. It's asking that why. You have to constantly have that in the Socratic method of why, and break it down until you can have everything at its core basis to say, we understand what we're doing and how we're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, the business is wonderful as technology. They have all these wonderful, great names, and all these tech companies have really fun names. But at the end of the day, all the business cares about is, are they making money? Are they reducing some type of cost? Are they improving customer satisfaction? Are they doing some type of operational efficiency? These are critical, right? This is going to help you a long way. And it's being able to have this communication, be able to have this detailed out, because the technology side is going to fall through, right? There's so many options out there. That's a whole different evaluation criteria of what technology you use, but you have to understand the business first. Then we go into this AI opportunities, right? The second point that we talked about is seeing where can we have the most impact? Because ultimately companies today, they don't want to look at a 2-year project timeline. They want to say, what are you doing this quarter, right? The CEO got on stage and said, we're going to be an AI-driven company. We're going to have this next quarterly business meeting. We're going to show exactly what we've been working on. And now you get this stress that you have to create something this quarter, right? So this is where it has this pyramid of this feasibility versus value index to say, where are we currently at, right? And that starts by saying, where's our current capabilities? What are we doing today, right? And this really falls in line with the analytics, right? With your data quality, the data integration, your whole process side, and then also the analytics. What are we currently doing today? What technologies are we using? Who are our partners? What's our skill gap, right? Be honest with yourself. Don't say that we're great and we have everything solved. Be critical. Say, this is where we're at today. The next one is this marketing competitive analysis. You don't have to work in a vacuum, right? You can look at this and say, you know, forget who says this as a quote. Maybe it was Picasso or someone, but they said a great artist tends to borrow or steal ideas from other people. Steal is a very bad legal term to use, but it is. You have to look at other areas and maybe industries or other arts or aspects of it to say, how can we kind of borrow this credence, this idea, what's working? Because a lot of this stuff is not clever or unique. A lot of the stuff that we're doing in terms of AI and machine learning has been around for decades, as we kind of established. It's just saying, how can we utilize the current technology that's available to accelerate this? The integrators, the people that can help bring it to the market. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? That's the important aspect. You don't have to be the one creating something from scratch. Next one is feasibility studies. What exactly can it do and can it not do? There's so much stuff that people think AI can do, and it just can't, right? There's going to be guide walls, and there's going to be restricted as well based off of your own internal security measures, right? What exactly can you keep inside? You're going to be hosting it internally, you're going to be doing something here. What type of guardrails are you going to put up? There's going to be limits to it, right? And going back to Dimitar's point, you need to have that human intuition, right? That's the area AI lacks, and this is where the feasibility comes in. The next one is the value, right? And we'll touch on this more, but it's why are we doing this? What are we getting out of it?
All right. Now let's examine the taxonomy of AI use cases and talk about the use cases or a few examples of use cases. There are three main classes of AIs. First is media content generation, then synthetic data generation, and then real-world design generation. In media content generation, you can have images, texts, and audio. For instance, in images, AI can be used to generate realistic images from scratch. Think about tools like DALL-E or Adobe Firefly. Marketers use these tools to create eye-catching visuals without the need for a graphical designer. In text, that's a wide one. It's actually the widest or most prominent group. You can have some examples there like customer service, AI chatbots that can handle customer inquiries 24/7. You can have code generation tools like GitHub Copilot. They help developers by making coding faster and reducing errors. Then you can have research reports. Researchers can use AI to compile literature reviews quickly. You can use AI for content generation, curation and generation, news aggregation. AI can curate articles based on the user's preferences. Enterprise search, it's a big one. Consider an AI system that can search through massive internal databases to retrieve specific documents. In marketing content, we already mentioned tools like Jasper. They can craft compelling product descriptions, posts on your blog, on social media. They create content for you. Audio, that's another big one. For instance, Spotify uses AI to generate personalized playlists. And lately, there are many artists that start using AI to generate tracks or parts of tracks. They can generate a whole new singer. It's really an amazing use case for AI. Synthetic data, that's, I think, in the corporate world, that should be a very, very big one in the future. This is where AI is used it's trained on real data, where real data is scarce or sensitive. For example, healthcare. Healthcare providers, they generate synthetic patient data to train their future machine learning models without compromising patient privacy. Real-world object design generation, it's a big one. This class involves creating designs for tangible objects, and it's divided into three subgroups: parts, materials, and drugs, where parts you can think of automotive or aerospace industries that use AI to design lighter and stronger components than the traditional designs. In materials, AI can predict the characteristics of new alloys or polymers, speeding up the material development process. And drugs, I think it's one of the biggest, my favorite one. Pharmaceutical companies can use AI to identify potential drug candidates much faster than traditional methods. Okay, let's look at this chart to the chart to the right, the previous slide. This chart maps the various Gen AI use cases based on their feasibility and business value. On the vertical axis, we have the value, and on the horizontal axis, we have the feasibility. This chart is self-explanatory. AI investments are most beneficial in high value, high feasibility areas. For instance, media or image generation or code generation score very high here on both axes, making them prime candidates for implementation. To create a similar chart for your company, actually, you need to identify potential AI use cases, then score each of the use cases across value metrics like revenue increase and efficiency gains, and feasibility metrics like technical readiness and internal capability. But you can design these metrics yourself or use some external help. This scoring framework helps you prioritize AI projects by highlighting which use cases offer the most value and are easiest to implement. Again, this chart is a great starting point for assessing AI opportunities in a broader organizational context. It ensures that resources are focused on projects with the highest potential and highest return on investments. Let's move to the next slide. Here is the first use case. It's based on a publicly available case study for one of the major US banks. Wells Fargo faced a significant challenge. They have strict privacy and security controls, and these controls limit their ability to use valuable data, stifling model training, innovation, and data analytics. In this highly regulated industries like banking, the constraints can make it very difficult to leverage customer data for advanced analytics, and this can impede the development of more accurate machine learning models or better solutions. To overcome these constraints, Wells Fargo used synthetic data. They partnered with a leading synthetic data generation platform, and they created data sets which empowered their data scientists by simplifying the process of generating more and more data for training of their algorithms. They used these algorithms to train time-consuming models where data curation is critical. One primary application, for instance, is synthetic data can be used in training machine learning models for fraud detection, and they did exactly that. By creating these data sets, which actually mimic real-life instances of fraudulent transactions, the bank could enhance the accuracy of its models for detecting fraud. They basically just creating more and more examples of fraud. Additionally, synthetic data can play a crucial role in addressing biases which are present in legacy data. Wells Fargo also did that. They could fine-tune their synthetic data to create a more balanced and fair training data, and thus they reduced the bias which is inherent. In the future, they plan to utilize synthetic data to enhance customer engagement and have more personalized services. By understanding and analyzing customer behavior through this synthetic data, they can improve their customer retention and many more KPIs, finally leading to better outcome. As Patrick mentioned, for a big corporation, what really matters is the top line and the bottom line. Let's move on to the next one. Here we have a use case from Eversana, which uses AI to make real difference in the life sciences industry. Their approach can inspire us to integrate AI into our own products and strategies. In clinical trials, Eversana uses AI to analyze electronic medical records. This helps them quickly find suitable candidates for recruitment. It speeds the recruitment process for clinical trials, ensuring a diverse group of participants. AI also continuously monitors patient data, giving real-time insights that make the trial safer and more efficient. To manage routine follow-up communications with the patient, Eversana deploys an AI-driven chatbot. So chatbots can handle regular check-ins instead of a nurse or another team member, and this ensures patients remain engaged throughout the whole trial. For doctors, AI helps by accurately interpreting medical images or genetic information. This means better diagnosis and more effective patient care in the end. Imagine what a similar AI solution could do for your own product and for your own strategy. Now, let's have a short poll.
This is a good one. Has your organization implemented any AI tools in production? This is the key one, in production, right? I mean, they say, I think, what, almost 80 or 90% of ML models actually never get deployed. It might be higher than that, but it's quite a significant amount, right?
There's a lot of experimentation and very small number of projects actually hit production.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Even less like get deployed to customer facing aspects. But I feel like today everything's getting pushed, right? Some type of Gen AI API kind of being integrated with something. So
yeah, companies are naturally careful with these because small errors or mistakes can ruin their customer experience, or maybe they can cause legal trouble.
Yeah, that's a big one, legal trouble, right? That's the big aspect, a lot of it, anything with data, legal trouble.
Yeah.
Looks like it's a good enough collection. We'll go into this next slide, talking about one of my top areas, right, is this value. Value, value, value. When we look at this and say AI, there's this interesting Gartner study that came out, I believe, just earlier last year, saying that one of the number 1 barriers of AI implementation is the ability to quantify or define value. And this is difficult, right? Because it has to take this realm of knowing both the technical and the feasibility aspect of it, but also being able to say, what's the financial impact of it? And we mentioned this before, the bottom line, the top line, and I add this other component is risk. This type of aspect is if when you're doing type of a value analysis, having this impact analysis, saying, look, here's what we're doing to the bottom line. Here's what we're doing to the top line, detailing it out, having the hypothetical, creating this value hypothesis to say, what would it mean if we were to change this? Because ultimately, the only real way that you can see the actual value change is by doing a pre-state and a post-state, saying this is what we were at, this is where we are now. We can measure the difference between the two. One component that you want to have here is risk, right? Include this with everything. Say, what is the risk of us doing this, right? Because it's one of these aspects when you're creating this AI strategy is you need to be upfront about this. There could be a negative brand exposure, right? We talk about that with training data, right? With biases. Decreasing the servage outages, right? What exactly are we going to be doing? How is this going to be helping it? Is there a risk associated with doing this? Can we do something that is going to mitigate our risk, right? To either the business or internally with this tool implementation, right? So there's multiple aspects and avenues when you look at this risk component. One creational tip I want to give you for this value creation is don't really get caught up in model performance. Focus on the end goal, right? Can you make a sustained and material impact on the strategic imperatives, right? And this is the type of stuff, it goes back to the training, the implementation, human intuition, and understanding your business. Because if you understand and model, right, and we do a lot of predictive modeling, when you look at something that's providing some type of even machine learning prediction, and it's on binary classification, and you're talking about something that's giving you a Shapley value, what is the probability of this going to occur? It requires the user to make a judgment, to say, look, we have like a 85% likelihood that this is going to occur. Here's the metrics. Let me dive into it. Let me ask more questions, right? Let me break down the whys. So this is that component where we talk about is your model in some cases may never get deployed because in some cases you can't have a model that's only 99.9% accurate because that 0.1% failure rate, that risk component is billions, right? And that component's going to come. If something is looking at protection of customer churn, and you're saying, well, our model is 85% accuracy. Well, that then it requires training and intuition with the customer and the user to say, this is what we can provide you. But by the way, you need to take and ask the right questions. What components are going into it? And have explainability, because explainability with anything in the value world is needed because you're always going to come under scrutiny and they're going to ask all these questions about why is this going to occur? When we talk about the quantification of business value, this is a good little high level, these little 5 pillars, right? This is something that I would say, if you could have this in the value framework, this will help you greatly. Having those business objectives, as we mentioned, how does it align? Maximizing that return on investment. This just goes back to that feasibility versus value index. Which one's the biggest payout, but also the most feasible, right? Within the realm of your conversation. This sets up that timeline, right? Where are you going with it? Next one is risk management, right? Talking about what is going to happen if we do this. What's the likelihood of different things occurring? Resource allocation. This is very important because right now, everyone's trying to do more with less. And we see this race with companies to try to buy as many GPUs as possible. And they're doing that for their own purposes, testing, creation, models, things like that. But internally, what exactly are you going to be doing, right? What can you do internally with what you have today? Because you can't go say, we're going to go buy, 100 NVIDIA H100s, right? The economy of that is just very unfeasible, especially at the price of them being like, I think 30 grand, 40 grand, right? Someone can look it up and check that, but it's expensive, right? And the next one is this, yet again, component I like driving home is continuous improvement. Once you do something, it's never done, right? There's constant reiterations. Technology is changing so quickly that you have to say, look, our model is 85% accurate. And we were constantly working on it. There's new factors, new data that we're collecting, new methods to do something, new technology that's been produced that we can now integrate it and get that 85% accuracy up to 90% accuracy in that model and help increase this level of use, right? But yet again, this continuous improvement requires the whole cycle to start over again. with the business objectives, the value, the risk management, the resource allocation. So these are key components to ask yourself and to have detailed explanations for, right? I wish there was a way that you can just have 1 page and 5 bullet points to explain this all, but we're talking about organizational wide change, right? This is what these AI strategy assessments are doing. This is what's happening with these type of initiatives. This is going into that roadmap, right? This is company-wide. You're developing something that is going to be taking years, and every single quarter is going to have something that's going to be produced. There's short-term and long-term goals to this. What exactly are we doing in the short term, right? There's demands to do something today. And it could be as simple as, integrating some type of chatbot, right? And having some type of LLM attributed to that. You're not alone. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to create something. There's a lot of system integrators. There's a lot of partners. There's a lot of companies that can help you implement AI very quickly with your current data set. The same thing is resource allocation, budget, personnel, technology. Today, another big aspect of preventing AI implementation, people say, is personnel, right? They need more people that have experience in this. And let me tell you something. You're not going to go find someone that has 15 years of machine learning and AI experience, and you're going to pick them up for the price that you want to pick them up for. This is something that you're going to have to either use external resources for, right? Hire consultants and consulting firms with services, or internally look at how you can train and relearn your current personnel to get to that next level. A lot of skills in this are transferable. It's just math, right? It's just math. And if you have someone with a strong financial background, taking them and saying, hey, we want you to start learning a little bit about the technology components to apply it to your job, it's easy to do. It's just the nature of the world today. You can't simply go 30 years without learning anything new. Every day you have to think about, how am I going to learn and develop myself internally and externally? Another one is milestones and KPIs. This is important, right? This is an important one to have, is to celebrate those wins. Have a good time, take a breather. If you have something, you deployed it in a couple of months and you actually have something used and you're monitoring and tracking and the feedback's good, celebrate it, right? It's something that you want to do to internally promote yourself. And this is difficult. When you're creating these projects and you have something, you need to have the ability to have that post-sales value realization and have milestones associated with that and celebrate those wins. There's so many different management courses and books. I mean, ad nauseum, people say you have to celebrate the small wins. It keeps you motivated. You can't look at a mountain and say, man, I got to get to the peak up there. This is so much work. You have to look at the first step that you're taking in front of you. I'm going to get to base camp. I'm going to walk the 1 mile. I'm going to get to the 5 mile. I'm going to get to the 10 mile. Now I'm going to get to the top, right? Things like this require you to constantly think about these and keep the team motivated, because it's easy to put on blinders, get down to work and not look at the peripherals and not enjoy the moment that you're in. The last one, right? Hammering this home, I think maybe because it's within my domain, but you don't want to have the rug pulled out under you when you're 8 months in to a 24-month roadmap and you have someone say, we don't have money anymore, budget's pulled. You want to have where constantly you're able to defend what you're doing financially. We saw probably, I think last year, about a year ago, right? I think with the 2022 to 2023 shift, there was this big factor, right? In 2023, 2024, massive amount of layoffs. Companies had this reaction. They said, we need to cancel all budgets, no renewals, no increases, everything's flatlined. We need to figure out how we conserve cash, right? And if you're in this line item aspect approach, where they sit there and look at you as something that could be easily removed out of the equation, it becomes an issue. It's a lot of time dedication wasted, right? And it can really impact your business because these things are required, right? I think today the AI hype has helped a lot with companies dedicating investment to this, but I can guarantee you with any type of hype, there's a curve to it, right? There's going to be a bleed off and things are going to change and you have to constantly keep relevant to what you're doing. You have to say, this is what we're doing and why, and here's what we've got out of it. We've helped save millions. We've helped produce this much. We've reduced costs by X, Y, and Z. This is what we're looking at going forward. You'll always be relevant and you'll always keep in factors with that, right? And you can use this personally in your personal life or any type of AI strategy that you're doing. Last one, and we're kind of talking about this stuff here too, is with this data, right? Data, right? There's so many things that people talk about, and it's all coming down to what can you use it for? I know Dimitar loves this topic as well, because it's always interesting to see, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What can you do it for with the quality, accessibility, and compliance?
Yeah, and to have all these, you also need to develop and nurture talent. You can't go without the talent, and there are two roads here: internal talent, internal skills development, or external talent hire. or a hybrid approach. I'm personally a fan of hybrid, and I've seen a lot of customers that are really successful when they combine their internal strengths with external strengths. And yeah, as you said, you need to have to establish a robust data foundation. You need to have the governance. You need to have the infrastructure. This infrastructure needs to be scalable. It needs to be able to take on a potential huge workload from the additional tools that you will be developing. So in a sense, you can think of AI as just another big consumer of data, same as the dashboards. However, same as the dashboards, this data needs to be clean, this data needs to be available, up-to-date, curated, and all the other nice stuff. So in my thinking, I'm simplifying this in a way that, yeah, this is another big consumer of data. Do you have all the data sources available or not?
Exactly. And you're not alone, right? You don't have to look at each one of these task items and go, oh man, data quality. We have issues with quality and governance. How do we do this? You can say, look, there's companies out there that provide help and support, right? That can do this. There's integrators, there's partners. And again, I keep hammering this home as you're not alone. Use and expand this expertise because it's so much easier to bring someone in that has done this before and to help integrate this. And technology has advanced so much that a lot of these things become secondhand when you start using the latest and greatest technology. But also keep in mind, right? Cloud storage and computing, AI, it's compute heavy, right? So you have the scalability to it. Keep in mind the cost, right? The cloud isn't in the sky. It's physical data centers running and churning and burning and using electricity to figure out what you're doing. It's expensive. It can be expensive, right? So this goes back to the economy of it, but it helps you understand your AI and data strategy and what component you're going to, and understand you're not alone, right? A lot of these conferences I go to, a lot of people have issues with the cleaning, the validating, the enriching. We have all this data. What do we use? I think almost 90% of the data has been created in the last 2 years, and that's just going to be exponential, right? More and more data is collected. And do you need it all? What do you need to shut off? What do you need to use it for? What's the application? And then the compliance, right? Legal and regulatory, audit trailing. Where is the data coming from and how? Because there needs to be explainability to the process. And stuff like this becomes critical. And as we're going to see is there's already legal regulations have already existed in terms of how AI can be used, right? It's already been kind of worked in with data. But now we're seeing more and more. Now there's going to be AI specific regulation that most of the time is going to be more reactive than proactive. And stuff like this is going to be hampering your business in the sense that you're now going to have to constantly monitor and evaluate that continuous improvement to evaluate what you're doing. How do you future-proof that? How do you check off the boxes to say, look, we already have a good audit trail. Our data is clean. We have good quality. We have lineage attached to it. We have ability to catalog all our data and understand where it's coming from and how and the applicational use for it. We have everything we need and understand that it's scalable and it's usable today, right? It's a big aspect to it, right? But we can't ignore this. This is the part of the AI that is not the attractive part. It's the part that is the work, right? This is the part that requires a lot of work. And I don't want to undersell this at all when it comes to the data, but use this, right? When you're selling an AI strategy pitch, you have to also add the data component to it because without it, it's a non-starter. But it allows you as now for something and people in the data world and IT have been pounding for a while to say, look, we can now focus on this data. We can now get the materials and resources to do what we need to do to get to that actionable insight. And even that part that Dimitar touched on is that resource, right? And this is this aspect of looking at this culture, right? And I've seen a lot of people kind of build out different stuff. They have either AI councils, they have internal, data quality, AI quality type uses on that. They're creating training systems internally on how do they assess where employees are at. What can you use AI for? These are things that are big, right? Now, we're covering a big topic here because when we talk about training and development, there's entire departments and companies focused to this. What is the perfect amount? How do you get the employee where they're not going to be bored out of their mind doing 60 hours of training, just clicking through, letting a video play? How is it impactful? How's it going to educate them? How can they keep them constantly learning about what's coming out? How do they use it? The same thing with development, right? And this aspect of change management. This is big. There's people whose jobs and careers specialize in this change management because it's happening. You can't do things how you used to do them years ago. You have to understand what's happening today that we need to use it going forward. You can't ignore technology. You can't hide under the rock, right? I think even when you had internet come out, how many people back in the day would say the internet's just a hype? Oh, the internet's just a hype. And look at what happened. They're the same thing. AI is just a hype. No, it's here. It's going to stay, and it's here because it's going to make an economic impact, and it has been making an economic impact. It's getting people to the future, and it requires a huge organizational shift, especially for companies that are a little more traditional in their approach of handling the business world, right? And this goes back to getting the right stakeholders, creating these pilot projects, showing and demonstrating that value, having good communication to it, and having a feedback mechanism. Open the doors of channels of communication. I've seen people have AI councils, and it has people across the entire organization. It's breaking down these silos, right? There's organizations I've worked with where every single business unit acts like their own company, and they all fight, and they need to stop, and they need to work together. We have companies where they're streamlined, they're efficient, they're great at it. They have someone from the business unit, they have someone from the AI team, the data team, they have people from upper management, and they're able to talk about what's working, what's not working. And it's having that open door policy, and truly having an open door policy to say, look, maybe you're worried, the floor manager is worried about this taking people's job. And you can say it's not going to take people's job. It's going to make people be more efficient, more faster. It's just having new technology. It's like buying a new machine that can produce more items. It's things like that, right? Maybe you have someone in the data world that wants to temper the expectations of the people in the business world. What exactly are limitations, right? This feedback mechanism is critical. And having the ability to defend and talk about it and be open about it is critical for this change management. Going into this, right, talking about the change management and talking about that open feedback also falls into this monitor, evaluate, iterate, and improve continuously, right? This is something that I've been pounding home this whole time. If the value component and the continuous improvement, you're not one and done. You have to monitor that AI and performance. What's your benchmarks? What's the pre-state? What's the post-state? Associate dollar values to that change. It's great to say this feels great. I know it's helped, but a lot of those feels don't really translate well to the business. You can't go to a CFO and say, hey, I need $2 million more because it's really working well. It's working great. It's working good. Well, what is good? What is great? What is well, right? You have to be able to quantify that and put dollars and cents to it. Business impact, the outcome evaluation, right? Stakeholder feedback analysis, that cost benefit. You might find that you implement something on AI and it's pretty expensive. And you go, wait, hold on. We implemented this assistant to help with customer service, and we're finding that it's actually more expensive to run the AI model than it is to just have personnel running it, right? These are considerations that I've seen happen and considerations you have to have. Constant performance, right? A/B testing, adopting to the change, and that fostering continuous improvement, right? You'll probably be sick of me saying this afterwards, but I want you to constantly think about how can we do something better, right? How can we constantly be moving forward on that? We're nearing up the end of this presentation, right? I think that was the last point. And you get some free stuff. You get some fun stuff out of this. Because when I go give a presentation or a talk, people always say, oh, it's great. What does good look like? I just show me an example, right? People are visual learners. I understand that. So we developed a couple resources you're going to get, right? One of these first one is this guide, right? It's taking all these steps that we broke down, that 1 through 7, and it's going an example business case, right? Now, this is a report here. It's hefty. It's about, I think, 35 pages, maybe more. But this is a simplified version of what goes into this, because again, I'm talking about an organizational change. This is project scopes. This is setting up each one of these bullet points and showing you what does good look like. And then also for the people out there that say, I'm not going to read 35 pages, just show me the bullet points. I have a 1-pager, right? Showing how does it break down that digestible aspect to it. But I have to tell you, you cannot ever truly get the full aspect and benefit of an entire report into 1 page, right? I know there's this idea now with a lot of executives that they just want to show me the highlights, show me the bullet points, give me 3 bullet points. You can do that, right? But you're going to miss a lot of context. I think Jeff Bezos is one where he requires everyone to have a memo that they read and understand and have the context, because you need that richness of it. And we're getting to a point now where you can simplify stuff down to 1 page, but you need to have the ability for when they say, this is great that we have this on our data integration aspect, but can we dive into that more? And you say, yes, we can. Here's the report. Here's where it's at. Here's what do you want to talk about with this, right? It creates this whole domain of expertise. So this is what good looks like, right? This is something that we provide customers, we've done with customers, I've worked with on, and we created something similar to this to say, hey, this is what you're getting out of it. This is where you can take this and build this out, right? It's giving you that strategy and that roadmap. It's giving you that game plan. So this is a perfect little aspect. You can take it, use it, think of us when you use it, right? And let us know any questions, right? Comments for improvement and things like that. But I think right now we're going to enter into probably questions and other comments if there's anything going on.
Yep, I have some questions lined up for you already. I would just like to remind all the participants that after we wrap the webinar up, they will be automatically transferred to the AI assessment readiness survey. So let me start with some of the questions we have. The first one, why is a readiness assessment crucial before implementing an AI data strategy?
Yeah, so I think, and I can touch on a little bit, and then Dimitar can too, but I think that the aspect of having an AI data strategy is that's what people demand, right? You're getting demand and pull from the business and from the top. Companies in the X level, they want to be the executives, they want to be an AI-driven company. So they push that down. So when you say this, it kind of goes in hand to say, look, we're doing an AI, right? It's using the buzzwords, it's playing into it. We have an AI data, AI strategy assessment, but it also fits in with that data assessment. That's where there's a lot of components of data strategy that fit into it. And like I said, a lot of companies already have a data strategy. So it's kind of augmenting and fitting that into it. But that's my perspective on that. I don't know if you have one, Dimitar.
Well, I think it's important, always important, as with sports, with anything, it's important to know where you start. You know how far you are from where you want to be. I think that's crucial. And you will realize the amount of work, you can realize the amount of investment you actually need to do in order to get where you're heading. That's critical, because very often people and companies they just mistake in their assessment of how ready they are. Yeah, we have a few dashboards. Yeah, we're ready. That's something easy to overestimate the complexity of this topic.
Thank you. Moving on to the next one. What are the primary factors to consider when assessing an organization's readiness for AI?
Yeah, my little thing is like, look, if you're already consuming the data for insights and analytics, you can probably do some AI associated with that, right? There's ability to do that. So if you're already consuming it for insights in some other capacity, you're able to do it for AI. I think every organization has a varying degree of readiness, right? And that's a big component. So, it's always that fun answer. It depends, but I say it's a good thing to say if you're able to visualize and have some type of maybe even more advanced analytics, right? Things like that, we have some learning features and stuff like that integrated. You should be able to do some type of AI component, right? But it might be a little more limited. You might need more data. You might need more different models to train off of it. But that's kind of a good little assessment tool. I can say that's like the quick and down and dirty. Like, hey, I'm not talking about Excel, right? I'm talking about like more advanced tools where you're visualizing, creating something, and having some type of actionable insight. AI can probably be integrated to that to some capacity.
I think it's important to note the skill gap. The skill gap of so how many people, what are their skill sets, and this is very often where we see companies struggling. They know where they're going. They kind of know what needs to be done, but they have a team of 5 people where they need to have a team of 15 people. And year after year, they're saying, yeah, we're doing progress. When are you going to be ready? Next year. So the skill gap, a proper calculation, how many people, what kind of people do you need? And also, in a way, I think the cultural readiness, how you need to evaluate your organization's openness to change. And there will be always people, there will be factors trying to prevent change. Maybe these are people being scared for their job security. Maybe these are executives who are not prioritizing this. They're prioritizing other very expensive initiatives. So the strategic alignment of the executives' goals with this strategy.
Yeah, I see. Actually, this was one of the questions that we had lined up, but you already answered it. So I'll move on to the next one. How can organizations determine if their existing data infrastructure is suitable for AI integration? So this is more of like a technical question.
And Patrick had a good answer to it. If you're already, maybe Patrick can say more here, but I like what you said, that if you're already consuming good data for your analytics, for your advanced analytics, for your maybe already existing a couple of machine learning use cases, then maybe you know what infrastructure you need, or what are the gaps. So, and you always can conduct an audit, I mean, or scalability assessment. Obviously, if your infrastructure is in the cloud, scalability might be a bit easier. And I'm saying might be, because it's not just ramping up the cloud. You need 50 more servers. Your software setup needs to be ready for it as well.
We now have a comment from one of our attendees. Let me just read it out to you. I think one of the challenges with new technologies which are going to replace existing ones is the fact that people tend to fall back to their old habits. Moreover, the issue with integrating AI in some cases is the fact that the roadmaps are already full and there is literally no time for experimentation. Do you have any ideas and suggestion how to address this?
Priorities, maybe, yeah. And Patrick had a good one on this in the beginning.
Yeah, I think there's so much demanded today of the business that you're right, it becomes congested, right? There's a lot of noise, and you have to be able to get through and cut through that noise. And it's having that solid business case to develop that. But you're right, there's a lot of hesitation. I mean, think about this. When we talk about data governance, we talk about, I say, oh, we have something in analytics, advanced analytics. Ask yourself how many people, default into something comfortable with. How many people download the data into Excel and then manipulate it there, right? That's a perfect example of people defaulting to comfortability. And it's the same thing with AI, and it goes back to that training component. And this is why you need to have the entire organization involved in it, because one aspect of it is you need to have an entire buy-in. If you are doing it in your own little realm and world, that's great. Maybe you have to start there to have the success to bleed it over into other parts of the organization. But you need to have the ability where people say, hey, hold on a second, here's what we're taking as primary objective, right? Because there's a time in organizations where people do a little bit of a runaway. They start developing, one part of the organization is doubling down with insert one cloud provider and whatever machine learning integrated tools, and they're going to work with this certain model. And then another one's doing something completely different. You have to be more cohesive, right? So that's where it comes to break down those silos, I'd always say. And this is, me saying this is easier said than done. It's a big component, and it comes down to always executive buy-in. And having this to say, here's what we can do, right? If you're on the AI strategies council, if you're on a data governance council in the company, that's a good first step. It's good to have that type of council. If you don't have one, propose it. And this is yet again something for people. You have to think about people's innate initiations of what they want. They want to be a part of something. They want to develop their career. People are a little bit selfish, right? If you told an executive, we need to have an AI council, and I think you should be a part of it and head it up, they want to do that, right? It's a good thing for them. It's a good little notch in their belt. And the same thing for other people in business units. The same thing for quality council, the governance council, things like that. They all need to wrap up together to say, how do we break down this silo to have one unified approach? And setting those objectives, right? So it's a big question, right? And I'm giving you a lot of, multiple different avenues of looking at it, but I'd say it's something that it's a common issue, right? It's a lot of noise, right? And figuring out how you can cut through that noise. And that's where I see the first win and success is the biggest, right? The first thing you do has to be able to show some type of material impact that goes past some heady machine learning output, being like, wow, look, here's what we got. It's like you have to show something and say, this is immediate, this is tangible, this is physical, people can feel it. That's why ChatGPT really took off, is because it's tangibility to it. People are able to ask it a question and got an output. That was it. It took all the math behind it, doesn't matter. They got an answer, they got an output, they got a return. And that's what people need. They need tactile, they need something physical. And that's what you have to think about when you're targeting these AI use cases. Is we did something, people felt it, it was real, the output provided something, it made them feel good, but by the way, here's the value associated with that. So a little bit different avenue of approach to look at it. I mean, we could talk about this for an hour. This could be an entire presentation of itself.
Yeah,
But,
well,
good comment, good question.
unfortunately, we don't have another hour, but I think we managed to answer most of the questions. If there are any questions, because I see there are some more, we couldn't squeeze them in. We'll make sure to follow up with answers via email. And before we transfer our attendees to the AI readiness survey, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, if you want to talk, you have any questions, let's use the old phones, right? Let's pick up and talk. Let's talk. Like, that's just, if you want to have any questions, it's fun to have this type of stuff. We're not alone. Feedback, suggestions, what works. Sometimes if you want to just tell me what you're doing that you love and it's working well, love to talk about it and hear it. Same with Dimitar. More than happy to hop on a call just to talk about it and give you any advice about what I've seen, right? I mean, conversation's free, but I think everyone's in the same boat. We're all trying to figure it out together. So that's where I leave it, right? Open line, reach out anytime. Any comments, questions, feedback, more than happy to have a conversation about anything.
Yeah, same here. We're excited to work with you, talk with you, help you. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks so
Appreciate it.
much. I personally learned a lot from this session.
Thank you.